Hello and welcome to Cure Studios. I'm Seema Kumar, I'm the CEO of Cure, and joining me today is Jeremy Abbate. He's a publisher of Scientific American and a dear colleague and a good friend from a long time ago. Hi Jeremy, welcome.
Thank you, Seema.
The last time we had a conversation like this was at the National Press Club more than a decade ago. You remember that?
Oh, I remember it well. We talked about science communication, the challenges, and who knew what the future would hold then.
And you know, at that time we talked about how trust in science was, at an all-time low, and what we needed to do as science journalists, science communicators, healthcare leaders to engender more trust in science. Where are we today, all these years later? Do you think we're in the same place?
Not exactly. I think we have actually done pretty well with the fact that we've had such a changing communication environment. People have turned to different content sources to get their news. Yes, you could say it's a fractured audience, but I think some of the themes that we covered that day at the Press Club are still very much with us. I do think there is the gauntlet has been thrown down, particularly since COVID, in gaining the public's trust for science, for reason, for rational and evidence-based thinking. I recall at that event at the Press Club, there was someone named Anthony Fauci who joined us that day, and I think that was in the thick of the Zika problem. We are at an interesting crossroads now. People, I think, are a little tired of the doom and gloom. We've been with it for so long.
There's COVID fatigue, isn't there?
There's COVID fatigue. There's certainly, everywhere you look, there are the exigencies of a changing world, and a world that some would say is at threat, from the specter of AI, climate crises, the next pandemic. I think one of the challenges of communicating science is to say, look, there are solutions. We all have to be part of them, but there are solutions. And if humans could call on their collective wherewithal and also be part of the conversation, not feel that they've been spoken to by some elite. And I think that's one of the problems that we saw during
because
COVID.
We need to get down from our ivory tower as scientists, as science journalists. But you use the word specter, which to me is an interesting term, because a specter is a specter of something that is not so great, right? And so most of the time in science, when we first come across some technology or innovation or something new like AI, it often seems like a specter, Frankensteinian almost. So why is that, you think?
We tend to fear what's new. We tend to think about what new technologies, while there's certainly hype in all the great things it can do, very quickly you see stories about the negative. I mean, I don't know any AI headline that's either been, it's either very hypey about the wonders of it, or it's very negative about we're all going to lose our jobs and the world's going to be overtaken by robots. So it's hard to get that nuanced take, and sometimes people don't always have the appetite for it. I mean, media companies can sometimes be to blame because they're wanting audiences, they're wanting clicks, so they have to be a bit provocative. I think one of the tasks for anyone communicating science in any media channel communicating science is to balance that, balance the hype with what is the nuanced take here? Where is it really going to lead us? And I think we need to make sure we have a public that is trained to say, we don't want a hypey story. We want to explore the nuances of this, the good, the bad, what it's going to mean in 1 year, and 2 years, and 3 years. So it is definitely a challenge, and people are getting their news from so many different sources, from friends now after the era of social media.
Oh yeah, we'll come back to social media in a bit, but talking about traditional media, I mean, the good news is that Scientific American, how many year old institution is that now?
177 years old.
177-year-old institution is still going strong. So there is still appetite for good science communications, I would believe, because I don't think that you guys are all about hyping. You present balanced stories.
We certainly do. We certainly try to. Any given year, there's going to be anti-science factions trying to rail against what is objective, evidence-based reasoning and reporting. A lot of that is also, science changes, so the public has to understand that's the nature of this. I mean, during COVID, you found people saying, you lied to us last week, you said this, and now the science changes, the reporting has to mirror that. It has to always, I think, underscore some of the meta messages of science journalism, which is you need to understand the nature of this, you need to understand it's changing. I'm optimistic that we will continue to serve a place in society. The public needs to understand science, whether it's just to understand the world, understand where health is going. You think about business and capitalism fueling the scalability of innovation. Those types of, those individuals need to understand where science is going. So there's always going to be multiple constituents that need a clear view of our innovation future.
Absolutely, because innovation is our future, right? Because the moment we stop innovating, that's when we stop growing as a human, society, as a planet. Which actually, it brings me to this question about COVID. At the beginning of COVID, it was innovation. It seemed like we were all celebrating. We were all celebrating because finally we felt that people understood the role of science, the role of government, industry, academia, everybody working together to bring forward vaccines in an accelerated time frame. And we all thought, finally, science is having its moment. But very quickly, the tide turned. Why do you think?
I think, the public got used to innovation solving problems almost overnight. And there are many cases throughout the last multiple decades where science and science advances changed the nature of things. I mean, look at diabetes 100 years ago, it was a death sentence. Almost overnight with insulin, it became a manageable chronic disease. I think we are in some ways a victim of our own innovation successes. I think sometimes we think this is the cure-all, this is going to solve the problem. And the fact that it didn't do it immediately, was part of what fueled this suspicion that somehow the scientific community wasn't giving the public the whole story.
And the fact that we didn't know it all.
Exactly.
Right? Science is not about, having, immediate solutions. It's about figuring out a way to get there.
Hacking together what we know in a way that actually can have an effect clinically. And I think the public needed to be reminded that this was an evolving story. It was an evolving virus. And the nature of this is not some magical overnight success. So we still have a task at hand to make sure that communication is holistic.
And here at Cure, we believe that we need to continue to build that trust. We need to actually create that two-way engagement, because it's also about listening to people. It's also about being able to have that dialogue and bring people in through the journey, not just the end outcome. That's number one. That's why we convene people here of all walks of life and people who care about healthcare to come together to be united as an ecosystem to solve. And New York City, I mean, it's such a wonderful place, and life sciences ecosystem is just at an inflection point. It's about to start thriving, like Kendall Square, like Silicon Valley. What do you think the promise is for New York City to be the center of the world in terms of being a life sciences ecosystem?
Well, I've been a New Yorker all my life. I love the city. I love its diversity. I love the fact that it is part and parcel of the creative spirit and the human spirit that has solved so many of humanity's problems. So I applaud the mission. I applaud Cure in being a convener of multidisciplinary conversation, multiple stakeholder engagement for the ecosystem that will drive us forward. I think there's no place like New York. It's where the creativity is. It's certainly the cultural and financial capital of the world. So I love being part of anything, and Scientific American has been in New York since 1845. I love being part of anything that showcases New York as a backdrop to so many exciting ways to move the needle.
So Jeremy, what are going to be some of the key trending topics you think this fall and into 2024?
We are planning, and our editors are always planning something unique that will resonate with the public. You can look for a special report on the science of sleep coming up in Scientific American. You can also look for some great coverage on how we're going to be preparing for the next pandemic and hopefully, avoiding such a crazy multi-year calamity. You can also look for the future of vaccine technology, rare diseases, a host of great health topics to look for in Scientific American on your newsstand, in your email inbox, and through our new podcast, Science Quickly.
Oh, Science Quickly.
Wherever podcasts are available, you can find the Scientific American's new podcast.
So Jeremy, all great healthcare topics that you guys are covering. One topic that we're going to be focused on this fall, something that I'm really excited about, is focusing on AI for good in health. And that is something that I'm looking forward to driving here from Cure and looking forward to partnering with you on the content side of it.
We'd be thrilled. We've got some pieces on AI and health specifically, and related to that topic is something I'm very, very, it was near and dear to me, is a special issue we're going to be doing on future of Alzheimer's research, which is a big collaborative partnership Scientific American is involved in.
Absolutely.
So would love to absolutely have Cure be a part of that program and initiative, and I know there's many people we can draw on with our networks to take that forward.
Absolutely. It's an important thing to solve, and it's a grand challenge that we need to solve for the sake of society and the future of human beings in general. So thank you so much for joining us, Jeremy.
Always a pleasure.
We've been in conversation with Jeremy Abbate. He is the publisher of Scientific American. Brought to you from Studio 345 at Cure.